Now, this brings up the energy piece. And so, which is the last little section, well, actually, it's the little section here that we're going to kind of wind it up. This is something that I just think everyone has to figure out, but I think it has a big implications for business. And I think everyone, and then technologists should start wrapping their heads around this. Now, the basic way to understand it is there is this pressure of climate change. There's a big, robust debate still in the United States here about it. The Europeans and others have less of a debate going on it. But the basic facts are there is this crazy liftoff. This is CO2 in the atmosphere for the last 1,000 years, and essentially from the Industrial Revolution, which starts in the yellows, and modern days is the red there. CO2 is clearly going off the charts into the atmosphere. There's other facts. The late 20th century, this is 25 years of temperature rises all over the world. Reds being it's up, blues being it's down. Obviously, it's trending warmer. But so there's a whole debate around that we can talk about, and we don't want to go there in the short time we have here. The second thing, though, is this oil thing. Even for the oil industry and others have been thinking, well, gosh, there's limits on what we can do. There's only so much oil out there. And everyone has different projections on how much oil is out there. Is it 10, 20, 30 years? Are we hitting peak oil now? I mean, this is a serious, robust debate, even to those circles. But whatever you think is, this is the price of oil from 86 to about now. It's been going up. And there's a lot of different scenarios on this. It could go up gradually, but even gradually, that's put a lot of pressure on resources. It could go up dramatically. And people do talk about $200 a barrel of oil relatively quickly here. This, whether it's an economic driver or ultimately a climate driver, whatever is happening here, we are in this shift, folks. And so the shift is happening, and we got to start wrapping our heads around it. And I would say here's the one way I think about it in terms of energy. The world consumes about 18 terawatts, which is just like your kind of guys have the same kind of tera, meta, in technology. It's roughly the same thing in energy. We absorb about 18, or we use 18 terawatts of energy a year. And it's coming from, if you look at those things, gas, coal, oil, plants is the green one. There's a ton of stuff we still burn, particularly in the developing world. But mostly that's how we consume our energy. That's where we're getting our energy globally. The little sliver there of the red is nuclear, which is clean in terms of its CO2 output, and the very small little slivers of how much we currently do with solar and wind. So it's essentially not much. This is essentially how we consume energy, and it's not just about cars. People think, oh, it's transportation. Electricity, agriculture, heating, cooking, all kinds of stuff. The entire economy is based on energy, right? This, if you talk about growth of energy use, this is from the 70s, 1970 to current. The entire world consumption is going up, and every one of those slivers is a country. The United States is at the baseline there. The red is China, and that orange is India. So it's clear the world's sucking up more and more energy, and it's only going to go up as the developing world goes. So it's like, we're doing more energy. This is the United States energy consumption for the century from 1900 to now. The one way to look at this is blues are carbon-based. If you look at coal at the bottom there, coal was our biggest, was the majority of energy in the turn of the century, the 1900, essentially flatline. But look at oil is the big one, the big purple one there. So we're growing in energy use, more and more carbon use. So ultimately, a lot of people are starting to wrap their heads on, we have to figure out a way, we're never going to get totally off of carbon, but a lot of people are starting to think, we can bring down our energy use through, kind of efficiency. That's why we can maybe bring it from 18 to 16. And there's still going to always be some carbon use. We have to do it. And even everybody, even the most hardcore folks on climate change think, yeah, absolutely, there's always going to be in the mix. So the question is, we have to come up with close to 11 to 12 trillion, 11 to 12 terawatts of clean energy in the next 20 to 30 to 40 years, depending who you listen to, whether it's driven by climate or whether it's driven by the end of oil. So this is what we have to have shifting. There has to be some mix where nuclear has to certainly has to expand. That's controversial to some people, but it's basically from a climate change point of view is a clear way to go, and essentially that's where a lot of people are going. But also these other mixes, you're going to have to figure out wind, geothermal, solar, and there will be, like I say, a substantial amount still of carbon. But essentially, it's a huge build-out. Now, the question is, we have the technology. We know the engineering. This is basically a matter of how we really push through. Now, we're not waiting for some super breakthrough. I mean, when I say we have the technology, it's not like everything's figured out yet, but essentially, we're in the space to do it. Now, this is, again, just take the electrical grid in the United States. This is the current way, the mix of what it feeds into the electrical grid here. Coal, natural gas, petroleum, nuclear. Somehow, now 2020 is pretty ambitious there, but somehow you got to get to some other kind of mix there, and this is different people trying to figure out what is that mix. Anyhow, the reason I'm saying this is going to have big implications on business. You're already seeing it in the sustainability movement. You're already seeing it in the pressure of everybody to kind of wrap their heads around this. This is a big deal.